Hi everybody and welcome to Alt Bay. Today we are going to do a react video to the most recent interview with Do Kwon and Zach Guzman. It's interesting to say the least. We are going to be able to tie back a lot of what we had discussed in our first two videos and just make a lot of connections with that. So that's really fun and exciting. And yeah, I'm just excited to break this down with you, Mai, and break this down for everyone that is watching that may not still really know what or have been following super closely this whole situation.
I just wanted to highlight that it's very interesting that we took the time to identify like the Celsi situation, the Do Kwon situation, and now it's like playing out. And I don't want to be that person, but like I feel like the signs were there. I just feel like we're so used to ignoring them, but like I think these should be case studies. Like anytime someone walks around proclaiming that they represent a platform, but you're not really hearing much about the platform, it needs to be like a red flag that goes off on in everyone's head moving forward.
Yep.
Okie dokie. So we're gonna start it.
Okay, guys, let's get started to watch this lovely masterpiece.
If there was a tiger that had been starved for a week, and then your family and this tiger happens to meet, and the tiger happens to kill a member of your family and eats it, can you really blame the animal?
Kind of.
Basically,
Hold on.
It's giving OJ if I did it.
Hold on.
It's giving OJ if I did it. I didn't do it if I did it.
I just, it's that is one way to start off an interview. That is one way to start off an interview. Let's keep going.
I think his
we thought that the amount of
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, you know how like some people do this method called disillusion, where it's like you look to the left but you punch them with the right. It's giving that too. Not important. Just want to throw that in. Okay.
Like he's just very interesting.
Just odd.
sell pressure that was coming in was probably a couple of large funds, or maybe somebody like Celsius that wanted to get out of USD exposure because they had to wind down leverage or something like that. So we weren't particularly concerned. But then what we started to notice across the order books was
I just want to say off rip, this man is like, and Celsius, like, sir, we are talking about you. We are not talking about Celsius. Yes, Celsius did bad things, and that was a shit show in itself. But we are not talking about Celsius right now, sir. We're talking about you and your failures. So why are you starting off, like, you're starting off your interview first off with some wild, crazy, like, tiger statement, and then you're like, oh, by the way, the other guy. No, we're here to talk about you, my friend.
Yeah, I mean, it's giving like when the problem talks about other problems. Like, okay, slow your roll.
Right. Right. It's like deflecting right off the beginning. Like, who asked about them? Like, why are you talking about them?
Celsius is actually sitting in a lawsuit right now. They're gonna, you're not.
They're paying for their consequences.
Yeah, you're still trying to avoid them actively. So, let's watch him be weirder with his.
The pace by which UST was being sold off was accelerating. So I think there was like a 10-minute period where we saw like $400 million worth of market sales happening all at once. So then that's when we decided that we needed to deploy LFG reserves to defend the peg. And this wasn't the original plan, by the way. What we originally wanted to do with LFG was to put that Bitcoin into a smart contract and then allow users to redeem Bitcoin against UST in a decentralized manner, similar to how users can redeem and mint UST against Luna. But that system was still under development, and it would take too long to bring that system up while this crisis was still happening. So we
Wait, can
decided
you
to
pause
deploy
that?
LH users.
As they're deployed, though,
So how would this even happen outside of it being a wrapped asset? So this even sounds stupid now that I think about it. Like, okay, so he's saying that he was going to put BTC in a smart contract and have them be redeemed, but that means you're going to create a wrapped asset. Like, his reasoning doesn't even make sense in terms
Yeah,
of
because you
stating it
can't
with
put
that thought
Bitcoin in
process.
a yeah, you can't
Like,
put
you
Bitcoin in a
can't.
smart contract like
Smart
just like
contract
that.
unless you
Like
wrapped it.
because
But
Bitcoin
wrapping it in that
itself, like the
context,
Bitcoin network does not support smart contracts. Like so
yeah, so it would
you would
involve.
have to wrap it and put it on somewhere else. Yeah.
But that's stealing within itself because he would be making it so whenever you wrap a token, it's like token goes through something else keeps the original liquidity and you're minted another version of that token, correct? So someone's keeping the
Mm-hmm.
Bitcoin and then someone's getting the wrapped version of the Bitcoin. But if this weird crashing situation happens, it becomes worthless because it's destroyed on the other side. So like that is not even cool to say as a conceptual idea. Like that mindset is also like weird.
Our friend.
You can't
since it
stand
couldn't
you
be the
can't
system
lie
that
to
you wanted
tech.
it to be, talk to me about kind of
What?
I just don't feel like he can lie to people who are technology like who are aware of these things. Like I just feel like these statements are for people who don't understand crypto and it's just like this is how you did all of this. You're speaking to people who don't quite understand what they're investing in and that's fine, but it can only go so far at this point.
Right, right.
what the discussions are in the war room at that time around, okay, this is what we should do. This is where we should send it. This is how it's going to be done.
So the idea was that we would give that Bitcoin to a market maker so that they can buy UST with it, and then that's what we did. But what we
Who is the market maker?
And I'm getting like basically four different ideas for the same pool of BTC meant to defend the peg. That doesn't make any sense to have all these multiple visions with over $400 million worth of Bitcoin. Like this is insane. It's like he's playing with money like it's Play-Doh. Like I don't get it.
Right, but it's like, okay, who is the market maker? Because he says, then that is what we did. Then that is what we did. Okay, but like, who? Who is the market maker? We
Why
deserve to know.
and why are you doing off the book sales with market makers for a pending situation? It kind of just sounds like a setup to me. But you know,
He's saying
cool.
too much. If I were him, I already we're not that far into the interview, right? And I just am very perplexed as
It's
to
giving
why any of his attorneys would allow him to like just be up here speaking freely
It's
on his
giving
own.
Wolf of Wall Street when Leo was on the boat talking to the FBI agents about like the different ways like he does things. He's like, oh, if you want some, it's fine. I can give you some money. Basically, he's trying to bribe like an FBI agent. It's like you're giving out your little secrets to make yourself look less guilty, like you're inclined to help. But it's literally like you're inclined to describe the different ways you could have went about it, and it's actually very
Right.
unsettling.
Yeah. Let's keep going.
like after some time, like what we started to hear from the market maker was that the Bitcoin was being spent too quickly because the amount of sales for UST had only started to accelerate, and we started to see shorts pile up massively against Luna and UST at some given point in time.
If there is one there that could be proven, though, I guess the one that people focus in on is where the billions of dollars from LFG goes in terms of the market.
And I just want to make a point that while these shorts were accumulating, he was on Twitter memeing.
Yeah, and this timeline, now that I'm reflecting, does not align. Like what he's stating and how he's stating it happened, it doesn't really align with how everything played out and when the BTC was deployed to, because now he's saying it like he had pre-deployed BTC to prevent this, when we know the BTC was deployed post-crash, correct? So this is weird. Like, even as it's like he's restating a chain of events to fit a narrative, and it's kind of weird.
But not fully post crash. It was like while the crash was happening.
Yeah, but he's saying
like, technically.
Yeah, but he's kind of saying he immediately had gave it to a market maker, and he didn't immediately give it to a
Right.
market maker. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
Like, that's not how it happened. So, yeah.
Market maker. And whether or not that could also just let some big whale offload UST and exit that way. Because there's, as you said, it was designed to be something that would be much more transparent and wasn't ready for that. So what can you kind of like provide there that would say, no, look, this was all handled above board?
Well, so I think what most people don't understand is, given that most people that are observing the situation have never worked with a market maker or a trading firm. So they assume that if you pay somebody something, it's going to go to Curve or something of that nature, be converted to WBTC, and then just trade on the on-chain DEX, and everything can be summed up in just a few transactions. But it's not generally how these large trading firms work. It's just that they have balances in very large sizes across multiple different exchanges and custodians. So generally what they would do is that they would pay payment for a transaction, and they would book it, and they would generally move that to like a custodian or something, and they would have existing balances that could kick off trades right away as soon as the settlement has been made. So I don't have visibility into where they put the Bitcoin after LFG settled to the market maker, but like just in terms of like how much UST they were able to buy back, it matches the amount of Bitcoin that we gave them. And in terms of like doing like OTC trades to like cash out whales, like A, I don't think they would have done that, and B, even if they were to do something like that, if these whales weren't able to OTC, they would sell anyway, right? So unless they wanted to lose money, the market maker would do these OTC trades at fair price, at whatever the effective price of USD happened to be at that given point in time. So I don't see what the problem is.
There's a couple other I could run through if you really wanted to just let them rip.
Of course.
So to clarify, he sold BTC, which is a much higher asset, for his shitcoin and over the counter, and thought that would fix the price. But
we sold it to the market maker. To the market maker,
yeah, but
whoever that market maker is.
I know, but wouldn't that not make sense if price is depegging? Why would you sell a high value asset for a low value asset during a depegging situation? Wouldn't it make more sense to repeg and then align it with to peg it to Bitcoin? Like, it was a simple movement. I mean, everything's fucked up, but think clearly. You're like running an organization of some form, whatever that is. But why would you sell BTC for that? That doesn't make any sense. And it's done intentionally.
Maybe I'm not that smart, right? But it just seems as though that would be like the instant thought or the instant solution. Like, it seems as though he took a lot of extra steps to do what could have been done with just putting the Bitcoin.
Because if you created
to defend his own project, like putting that in his own project's reserves,
it was going to death spiral either way. Buying more of it wasn't going to help it if it was on a death spiral. Depegging it and reattaching it would have been the solution. And I don't understand his response, and he knows that. And for this man to sit here and be like, oh yeah, I sold all this BTC for something that was death spiraling, it's like, well, basically, so you wasted $400 million in BTC during a death spiral. Now that just sounds really upsetting.
Yeah, he just threw it away.
And now we have to ask, okay, so what market maker did you send it to, and how can you prove that it was sent? Because I don't know if we ever found that either.
I don't believe so.
Yeah, he's lying.
But wasn't there rumors at the beginning that there was something? I know like the companies who were name dropped were BlackRock, I believe, and I believe Celsius was also name dropped.
So Celsius, remember? So Michael Masinski, he was on camera and he lied. He was like, "Oh, we got out. We didn't lose any money." He's a liar. They did lose money. That's another
Mm-hmm.
reason why there's so many gaps in the balance sheet because he kept saying nothing happened and they kept losing money. So what happens when you keep losing without any way to replacement and your company's running at a loss? You have a gaping hole in your balance sheet that's spreading even further. So I don't know how much they lost. They did lose quite a bit, and he never admitted it. And then obviously Terra UST went to zero, so you can't get that back. So yeah,
That's fun.
you can't.
Yeah.
One of them is Flex Corp, around kind of some of the design of Terraform Labs and the way it's set up, and kind of looking into kind of where money moves in the hierarchy. Because again, there's a lot that's handled on chain and a lot that's not.
Right.
Why have that over there, and what's kind of the relationship?
So in Korea, we used to have 3 entities that were subsidiary of TFL. So we had Terraform Labs Korea, and then we had this company called Gaza Labs, and then the last is this company called Flexi Corporation. So in terms of Gaza and Terraform Labs, so Terraform Labs was like the company where I was working, and then when I moved out of Korea to Singapore, we wound that entity down, and then the remaining employees in Korea, they spun off into a company called Kernel, and what they had been planning to spend most of their time on is to build apps for large Web3, AAA gaming studios that wanted to build games. And the idea was that they would bring a lot of those games on Terra, and then they would get revenue by capturing some percentage of tokens or equity out of the companies that they were helping. And the revenue projections were really good. So as like a standalone business, I think this was really solid. And I think the people that were going to do Kernel were very excited about it. Yeah. But I think the landscape is a little bit different, but I am sure they'll figure it out.
The other ones out there that people point to is Project Dawn, and the way that money was used. It's like 100 million a month.
Oh, so
I'm just super curious because
Where
remember how that, but also why are you talking about the one that, okay, cool, they're working in Web3 gaming, like super cool. That has nothing to do with what happened again, which is what the interview is about, right?
And you see, and this interviewer is a piece of shit because he didn't even address the fact that he dissolved his
No,
company.
they're homies. They're homies. And that's what I was about to say right now. Is that it was a few days before all of this happened that the paperwork was filed for him to dissolve Terraform Labs. So that was very, very convenient for him to leave out right now to say, oh yeah, we dissolved it, but it was a few days before all of this happened.
But I understand, like in crypto, sometimes you have to make multiple companies do different things for different reasons. I get that, right? But he's saying that he
Right.
dissolved the company because he moved from out of Korea to Singapore. But then it's just like, well, that doesn't make really any much sense. And it's like, okay, but you still had other companies in Korea. Obviously, that's
And
why
you
he's being
moved
sued
from
for
Korea to
tax evasion.
Singapore for tax evasion, right? Yeah.
Because you were operating, doing businesses, and had not one but multiple companies. So it just kind of seems like, oh, I just wanted to move. Like, so because you want to move, your whole company has to move. That's the
Right.
only reason. I don't think that's the only reason, but sure.
I mean, just to be clear, like one thing that people are confused about Project Dawn is that we initially made like a large withdrawal to be able to fund Dawn.
Yeah.
And then we just noted that in addition to Dawn, every month we'll be at max limiting the emission of Luna tokens to 3 million per month. So that's independent of Project Dawn. And those 3 million were used to meet, our obligations to investors and employee vesting. And once again, none of that to me. Yeah.
All or operational costs,
yes,
essentially, to
yes.
keep everything going.
Yes.
3 million Luna.
Yes.
Which seems high.
But then again, like if somebody bought these tokens or they like agreed to work for the company, then it's kind of like as if like these tokens represent their equity upside,
Yeah.
right? And you can't renegotiate those. I mean, you can't fire an employee just because they agreed to take on a lot of risk when things weren't going well, and then suddenly, like, you feel like that upside, which is the risk that they took, is suddenly doing well. Neither can you renege on like an investment contract that
Yeah.
you've made.
And going back to kind of what Terraform Labs now has at its disposal. In building Luna 2.0 and trying to salvage some of this, the transparency around that, what kind of standing is Do Kwon Terraform Labs sitting on now to, as you say, come up again from the ashes?
So in terms of the future of Terra 2.0, the blockchain, like one of the things that I'm banking on is a lot of the core of the community that was built up during the crash. So a lot of people think about Terra
Can you pause
as
it?
just having been built up over Anchor, but
He's a sociopath because anyone who's lost that much money in crypto would just walk away and say, "Hey, I don't think this is for me. I have not been the leader that I thought I was. I am not capable of leading this community. I will gracefully bow down and, take
Especially
whatever
after
type
you've
of
been,
salvation for my crimes,
especially
even
after
if I'm
you've
not
been
responsible."
unsuccessful. Especially
This is
after you've been unsuccessful multiple times. This is what, the third time.
Come on, you're just getting bigger and bigger, and literally, I don't care what he says, and if he takes no form of responsibility, that's fine. You have to take some form of responsibility in the comfortability that you provided your community to deposit their mortgages, life savings, like that type of stuff. It's not even about whatever responsibility deny having. You still created an environment that was comfortable to make people feel like using this was normalized or okay without
Right. Or
without
that it was safe.
expressing severe caution. I don't care what I do, I always express severe caution, like, hey, I'm doing this, but mind your business. Like have some common sense when you do things. Don't do it with your lives, don't do it with everything, don't even do it with anything more than 10%. Honestly, that's crazy, but I don't hear any of those comments or concerns from his narrative or people like him or Alex. Like, none of those statements are ever made, so henceforth, to
Because
me, you're
they don't
responsible.
care about the people that they affect. They don't care about the
Obviously.
people that they affect. They're living very nicely either way. They have time and money and resources either way. It's like, I
Yeah.
don't like it. I hate it. But they have time and money and resources either way. And unfortunately, there's still people that are I don't want to call them fanboys, but like they're hopped up on a whole bunch of copium and are hoping that this is going to be a fruitful investment and ultimately.
I'm For sure. I mean, I saw the whole Doge craze and I was irritated because it's like everyone's like, "Oh, well, you said it was a shit coin and now it's going up." I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, it's gonna do that if everyone's buying at the same time. But please don't come to me crying when you're like, well, like the $1,000 I had is now 400. Yeah, because things decline in price and they move with it. As it goes up,
Yeah.
it shall also go down. I don't know if you guys are getting that. You're only seeing money and you're not seeing the negative repercussions of something that's volatile. And I've explained that to people, but it's like they don't get it until they lose 50% of it. Okay.
but actually, like, Anchor was very large, yes. But even if you take away Anchor, the Terra ecosystem still had $6-7 billion in TVL, which would still make it the second or the third largest blockchain in terms of TVL across applications like Astroport, which was the largest X. And at peak, Astroport had more trading volume than Curve and almost as much liquidity. And then Mirror at peak like got to above like $2 billion, and there was like a host of different, like a rich ecosystem of different projects that were being built on the Terra ecosystem. So I think the core of that community still lives on, and I think they are primed to launch interesting things on top of Terra 2.0, independent of the things that we do. But like in terms of where I want to be spending my time is I'm always going to be doing things on Terra and for the Terra community. This is my home, and this is, you know, where I feel like there's the brightest future. And most of
Why is he breathing so heavy when he says that? Because he doesn't say it like if he believes it. For real, for real. He does not believe what he's saying right now. There's no passion in that statement or enthusiasm.
Labs is still in.
It's sad, man. But the crazy thing about it, the thing that tickles me is that the SEC is doing everything but stopping these situations before they happen. Their whole purpose of existence is supposed to be protecting investors. And you are literally picking fights with tech corporations instead of like clearly addressing bad actors who are sitting in, luxury apartments giving interviews and t-shirts
by their
like
homies.
This is ridiculous.
He's not
like,
even
literally.
being interviewed by a real journalist. He's being interviewed by his homie.
This is insane. Like, I've never seen so much calmness and like lack of human concern ever in a situation
especially
like this.
For a guy that had his house broken into. Like
and
dog,
you're
you
in
got
this
your
room.
house broken into.
This room looks really clean. Like
he has entirely too many windows for somebody that got their house broken into. I don't know if he's in that location. Maybe there is somewhere else. I don't know. But if I knew that people were after me like that, I wouldn't be in no room with that many windows. It just wouldn't happen. It's not happening.
Maybe thinking isn't his song street.
So we lost a lot of,
No, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Executives during the crash, but in terms of like the overall headcount, we lost a total of 2 devs. So a lot of the product talent that we've built up over time, and we've created a lot of products that are honestly, I think at the cutting edge of user experience in Web3 and DeFi. Like, let's say the Terra Station wallet. I think the Anchor experience and the product market fit obviously was pretty strong. Mirror and lots of projects that we've incubated like Pylon and Valkyrie. So that is being repurposed to rebuild the Terra economy. So if our previous slogan was a decentralized economy needs decentralized money, my thinking has shifted a little bit. I think in some sense, like decentralized money needs a decentralized economy just as much. So I think the issue of what happened here was that the underlying economies were not very mature. So essentially, what we're going to try to do is to build, various different types of apps whereby we, draw in more human activity from the offline world to the internet as much as possible, using the best of Web3 technologies that we know, and make sure that Terra is the home to as many of those killer applications as possible. One thing that people just generally don't understand about Web3 is that they see hundreds of different apps and then they think that usership is like uniformly distributed across these things. But actually, like if you look at how Ethereum block space was being spent, prior to the crash, I think OpenSea was maybe 25, 30% of all gas fees being spent, NFT mints another 20%, and maybe just general token transfers and DeFi, the remaining percentage. So it's definitely a very top-heavy business where you just need to create a number of apps that people love to use. And then people will start to call that blockchain their own.
As you look to build out Terra 2.0, though, I mean, how much of the trust that may have been lost in the DPEG and meltdown crash spills over into that ecosystem? And what needs to be done to really restore? Do you feel like you've done enough?
I think it's going to take time. But I think, I think one aspect of Terra 1.0 that probably wasn't as healthy was there was a lot of trust in like one person, right? Which is me. And I don't think that's like representative of what actually happened. If you look at like the amount of talent.
Yeah, you can't pick and choose when to be a leader, bro. You can't like sit on a camera and like identify that I'm Do Kwon and I'm going to be on the social media and I control everything and you're basically a centralized leader on a DeFi platform. And then when shit goes
But you
wrong,
had
you
too
remove
much trust.
responsibility in your identity.
But you had too much trust in me,
You
man.
can't play both roles. You can't be the villain. You can't be the villain and the victim at the same time. I don't know if he knows that or if he got the message, but it doesn't really work. It's giving gaslighting. You know, it's giving like, oh, what about me? Like, what about what happened to me in the midst of people losing their life savings?
And also putting the blame on others for trusting him, the creator of the project.
Because you're supposed to lead developers. Like, let's discuss this like a normal person. You lead developers. You know, a founder creates a project, can't do it by yourself. You work with your developing team, but essentially, the point of having a founder is someone that leads with the vision and approves long term goals within the project. I would hope that would be the thought, not someone who's just egocentric and like obsessed with controlling narratives and then walking away from them the moment they fail.
That was working at a TFL, even though they didn't particularly like to shitpost on Twitter very much, is is very large, and we've had some great engineers, product managers, that were setting the tone for a lot of the projects that we were pushing out. And I think in reality, where people gave me a lot of credit for in terms of building up an ecosystem, I happen to be the most public facing figure. But that's not to say that there weren't, other great builders, a lot of great leaders in this ecosystem that have stepped up to get Terra to where it was before the DPEG. So I think, like what I'm going to try to do is to, make sure that people understand what happened here. And I think in terms of, healing wounds, the best that I can do is to just be upfront with, everything that happened, and just admit that I was wrong, right? So I believe that this can work. It didn't, and provide my experiences and the things that I've seen for other entrepreneurs I might want to pick up where we left off.
Yeah.
And then in terms of where I spend my time, I'm just going to try to focus on building products that people love to use. And if they love using it, they will. If they don't, they won't.
In terms of the legacy, it's you move on from this. You build something else. And if it's Luna 2.0, that's one thing. But the legacy of everyone else in what they lost in this still continues.
Hey, Peely,
Right.
why does he
So
not
how do you
discuss
square
what
that in
happened
terms
with
of...
the hold on? Why does he not discuss anything in terms of what happened with the token after Luna 2.0 was launched? Like, what happened with the burns? Like, what is
I
the
was
proper balance of it? Like, where are the actual questions? He's like letting this man like talk
just
like this feels like a therapy session, and like
yeah,
I
just
don't
talk
care about how you
indiscriminately.
feel. Like, it's not about how you feel. This is the irritating thing about the situation. It's all about Do Kwon. At a certain point, it's like it's not all about you. It's about the developers that built Terra, like the developers that worked on this ecosystem. It's about them. It's about their legacy being tainted, even though they may or may not have built great projects on there. And all I hear is how you feel, what you're going to do, and it's just like this is not the purpose of decentralization, because this feels like a rogue CEO at this point who no one can
He
stop.
he sounds like a kid, honestly. Um, that's trying to somewhat accept responsibility for the situation, um, vaguely and barely, while still
Vaguely,
throwing
very
in like
vaguely.
a whole. He's still throwing in a whole bunch of other, fluff and words and
Useless.
story. That's not really relevant, and it's not really useful to what's going on. So right now I am scrolling through Twitter. I just typed in Terra 2.0 in the search bar, and just off of a quick look, I can't really tell whether or not the people that are tweeting about it are paid or not, or actual
It looks like
community
bots. It
members.
looks like bots.
Yeah.
I don't
I'm
know. And even
curious to see
even
what the
though
current price of it is.
I think it's like fucking well, I mean it's really volatile, but it's still under a cent. So it's zero like 0.6 something something. So it's still moving back and forth under the cent range. which is great.
No,
It does that.
no, $4.22.
Terra 2.0?
$4.
No.
Terra price Luna is $4.24.
How? When
According
did
to
that happen?
Coin Market Cap. The original Terra
Why?
has rebranded to Terra
What
Classic.
happened?
A new chain is created with the existing Terra name. Yeah, $4.23.
Okay, sure, whatever. It's a fake pump. I don't care. They probably manipulated it. Remember, also, this man has a burn wallet. Like, no one talks about that. Remember the relationship between
Mm-hmm.
UST and Terra? Yeah, it's not a burn address. It's a burn wallet, Peely. So what does that mean? There are probably millions of
Sending it
tokens.
there to burn them. And what he's doing is just
No.
taking them out of circulation, probably.
And then pumping them and releasing them into, and then having them sell them. And then you're, sir. Again, this is totally the thing that the SEC should be dealing with, because I don't even recommend that they deal with anything, but this is it. Great.
Can you move on if other people out there are still reeling from their own personal losses?
He's thinking inside his heart, I don't care about none of those people. I don't care about any single one of them. And he's like exhaling and doing the most right now because he is preparing himself to like lie. I think this lie is gonna hurt him because he really just does not give a fuck on the inside.
It's a tough question.
It's a tough question. Not if you're a good person.
Not easy. Especially because there's also a time series to this as well, right? Like you could need that money right away to be able to do things for your family, and a crash like this just makes it impossible to do that. So I just don't have an answer there.
Luna Foundation Guard still has 200 million?
I think it's like 311 Bitcoin, and then like a large chunk of AVAX. So Avalanche wasn't touched during the DPEG events, and then it has some.
Is that because there's a token lockup?
No, there's no token lockup. It just, like if you tried to sell an altcoin when Bitcoin is crashing, it just wouldn't have worked.
Yeah. So it's not a token.
Pressures
Remember
the price.
Right.
So I think we talked about this, where I told you where he was doing weird things and like swapping with blockchains for fun, crypto bro stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And he has an unnecessary amount of AVAX, and they have Terra or UST, and when it crashed, he didn't send it back. And for him to sit on camera, if I was like in AVAX, I would like send him.
Yeah, and they had
something
asked
in the
for it
mail.
back, right?
Yeah, and he's sitting here like, oh, we have an undisclosed amount. Why do you still have it? Return it. If your token that you exchange
And
goes
why
to
is
zero,
it why can't you disclose it? Why can't you disclose it?
because he's not supposed to have it in the first place. It wasn't a it was a swap, but it's like we swap cars, right? And that car that you gave me just breaks, give me my shit back.
Right.
Like, whatever you gave me isn't working. It's not worth the swap. That's not how this works. I'm not just swapping you for free. You can't just keep my things for free. And he's sitting here like chilling, like, oh yeah, I have it. I'm not gonna release it. It's fine.
He annoys me. Also, if you notice, as the interview progresses, they get closer and closer to each other, and I'm just not really sure why.
It's like watching
it's
a
kind of
love
cute.
story.
Yeah, it's kind of cute.
At the worst possible time, yeah.
This is still happening. So we decided to deploy LFG reserves.
As they're deployed, though, since it couldn't be the system that you wanted it to be, talk to me about.
It just wouldn't have worked.
Pressures the price.
Right.
But when it comes to the last update on using that to make people whole, that was the last update I saw from LFG.
Yeah, so what we plan to do is basically do a program whereby in the first week, everybody that held up to, let's say, X thousand amount of UST can claim against this LFG reserve. And then week 2, that amount goes up. Week 3, that amount goes up again. And what we've been spending time doing is working with centralized exchanges to index the amount of users and their holdings in each bracket. Now, some of these exchanges have been rather slow in getting that data to us. And in some cases, like the data that they've provided was inflated over what was visible on chain. So we've been working with, the various different partners that have, worked with UST to make sure that the data that they've provided to us is accurate. It's proving to take some time. Yeah. But once that process is over, we're going to liquidate all of LFG's holdings and then, begin the process of making small holders get their airdrops.
Purely, so that doesn't, okay, so
You're a smart guy, and you know stable.
so basically he basically described how he did the Luna 2.0 distribution, but it was a shit show because he should have not made that coin just days after Luna and Terra, like, they fell. So but then, like, not
That's
all
not enough
exchanges.
time.
There's not enough time, and then a lot of exchanges were like, "No, we're not doing this shit again," and like did not allow him to even send tokens. So then he didn't even have a correct allocation of and then he obviously didn't redistribute the equivalent amount that was lost. Correct? He like fucked everyone over for the third time by like saying we're only going to release 30% of your total balance, and releasing 30% of a total balance of a recopied asset that's no longer pegged to another asset, which is just a free floating fucking coin, is the most moronic thing. And then he force locked everyone to stake the rest of it and then be redistributed. And as he said, like in weird terms, and then he was going to sell the rest of the reserve. And I'm like, none
Right.
of
It's
that
not
makes
like an
sense.
actual, it doesn't. If it were an
That's
actual
weird.
initial
Come
first
on.
time airdrop, then I understand releasing it in increments. That makes sense because you don't want to launch a project and have everybody just dump what was airdropped to them, the full amount that was airdropped to them. That makes sense in releasing it over time. But this is not that. This was
And just to
done
reiterate,
to like make up for the shit show that just happened.
but this is why he should be sitting in a courtroom right now, because he should be going through what Celsius is going through, where they lock you in a room, you can't leave the country, and then you have to decide. They have to make a plan for you to give the money back because you clearly can't
I'm
make a
just
logical plan. This is
I'm
not
just
okay. Whatever
curious.
he came up with doesn't work. It didn't work. It wasn't going
I'm
to work. And now look at everyone.
I'm just curious as far as like him not being gone after in the US, if it's just because um of like
Connection.
jurisdictional issues, right?
It has to
Since
be connections. He has to know someone. Because he should be in a cell. Like, this is way too comfortable. Like, comfortable, vagrant,
and
not a
he
care
also
in the
affected
world.
people like in multiple countries, not in just Korea, not
Of
in
course.
just
And then
Singapore.
I've heard numerous consistent complaints with his energy of being aggressive, that people are afraid of him. Like, I don't know
Mm-hmm.
what's his deal in his country, but like something's like there's something weird surrounding him, because I feel like this is all clear awareness and like allusion to, like, being a part of something and like causing it. Where if you're going to give the money back and you can't decide, you need to be in a courtroom so they can decide for you. He should have done, like, that's the thing. Wait, so if you liquidate your companies, you can't do any form of bankruptcy, right? Because your company's already liquidated and doesn't exist legally anymore.
I don't know. I don't know
So
how
look,
those things
that
work.
so you dissolve a company. There's nothing.
Mm-hmm.
What can you bankrupt?
Right.
bankrupt a dissolved entity that no longer has assets because the token went down and the reserves are cleared because the entity doesn't exist anymore and it was never a legal, really standing thing, hypothetically.
Which kind of brings us back to when to the kill switch, right? I wonder if the Terra Luna Foundation was actually like in bankrupt, was facing bankruptcy. Like if they were underwater, I wonder what their books look like.
I mean, if you keep creating tokens, it's hard to be underwater, but sure. He was giving himself 300 million Luna tokens times 100. I'm not going to calculate because I don't want to get angry. It's a lot of money. He basically already got the money out. He just needed to like shut it down, basically. That's what I'm hearing. That's what it's alluding to.
So you think it was more of a laundering thing?
Essentially, yes. I'm not a legal advisor, nor do I do financial advice, but that's what it
Allegedly,
sounded like.
allegedly,
Allegedly, and it's like,
allegedly.
why?
And this
So
is
to me, my issue
this is
is
a purely
I'm
speculative statement.
speculative. Okay,
Purely speculative statement.
so if I create something, why would I issue myself 300 million tokens off of just vibes, right? Like, should I have some form of passive income being returned? Because remember, I'm paying out yield, I'm paying for developers, I'm funding all this stuff. Where is my revenue coming from? How do I have
Right.
enough revenue to match the amount of funding that I'm allotting myself from newly minted tokens? That's weird, shaky territory.
Right. And according to Twitter, like as of right now, they're not using that much VC. Right now, they are
Well, they shouldn't have to at this point. I wouldn't
community
imagine that
funded.
they would.
Well, I
I'm
wouldn't
sure they
imagine that
shouldn't
any
be.
VCs would be comfortable engaging in
Unless you're
that.
a moron, but yeah, I mean, and I hate, so he makes statements that are like he's a professional gaslighter. Well, we're not accepting any VC funding. There's no VC that would wake up and donate any type of funding to you ever. So he's gonna pull like whatever those Solana devs did, where he's probably gonna make stuff, but he's not gonna announce his name. He's gonna be an anonymous pseudo founder for like the rest of his life, probably.
I don't like that. I don't like those.
Mm, I
That
don't
all
like it
sounds
if they
like the
hold
government to me.
token allocation. If they hold token allocation, I don't trust it. But if they like make it delete their keys and dip, all right, none of my business. Can't find you. Don't know who you are. But you can't be a pseudo
Like,
founder that's tweeting.
yeah, no.
Like
Or
make
just
it
a
make
small
sense.
allocation.
Define small because clearly we don't know what that means in the crypto space. Just a few 100 million tokens.
I would say no more than like 5% of whatever is in creation or can be in
I don't know.
creation.
I'm iffy about that. I don't know if people have a right to give themselves tokens without it looking like you're shitty. I'm just sorry. If we think about it from like, I have to think about things like what would the SEC use as an argument and try to bring up to use to fuck people over, right? So my thing is, it's like, why are you allotting yourself a token free use case of your blockchain or dApp, right? Like, why do you have to have them? Like, why? Like, just why? I don't. It's like if you think about a business, like if I took out, like if I got funding and I just issued myself like 2 million out of my funding before I even did anything, that'd be weird, right? It's weird.
Right.
Kind of the same concept. We just don't talk about it because I think we give the founders a lot of leeway in crypto, but it is weird, really weird. I think you can allocate it to the foundation or you can allocate it to the project and then create, I don't know, a salary from your token or some type of stipend. But I don't think it's fair that a lot of crypto founders issue whatever they want to themselves. It's really selfish and it takes away legitimacy from most projects. And it's the number one excuse. That's the first thing the SEC goes for is like they look at
So
the token allocation for projects.
so side note and segue, how do you then feel about Satoshi?
Does he have he has
Yeah.
Bitcoin, right?
Yeah, he has
Um,
a large
but
amount.
but in some context, we don't even know if that man's alive. He just made that shit and dip and didn't touch his wallet. So even in the case of Satoshi, it wasn't like he made it and then was actively using it.
Right.
Like, what about
For now.
one of the well, Peely,
Yeah,
it's
for now.
2022. If he's gonna use it, but like, dear Lord, like, again, I'm just saying, like, he allocated it, but with not the intentions of it appreciating in any form of value. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because if, again, it would be used if he did. Compared to like the XRP founder, one of them that like made XLM, that like sold all of his XRP off like the whole time for like years and years and years and years and years.
Well, that was part of his employment, like that was, I don't want to say him getting fired, but that was part of his settlement, like with leaving Ripple.
That's fine, but I still think it's like, it becomes questionable if they, again, like, create a blockchain, create a project, create the tokens, issue it to the company itself, and then repay yourself out or pay for all fundings from a DAO. Cool, great, but it just shouldn't be going to. You shouldn't be make yourself billionaires before the work is done. You know, like, the money's obviously
I
gonna
agree
come.
with that. I agree with that.
Because no one can control the amount of you're paying yourself out. No one can like go into that. No one can alter it. No one can question it. And we don't even know how much money this man has taken out of his own project. We have no idea. We'll never know.
Stablecoin's probably better than everyone in the world, I think. And you knew the risk around depegging. When it comes to those risks now, though, it's like you're making those decisions in your seat. I don't know if in your head you're thinking about what could happen to me as a person if this fails.
I like literally didn't think about that even for 1 second. I've never thought about what could happen to me if this fails.
Stop right now. Stop right there.
Liar.
Why is he lying?
He's a liar and a fraud.
Why is he lying? Like, if there's not a whole video on Cardi B's internet
No.
of him saying that he has a kill switch if things go wrong, and he can dissolve the company in within 24 hours. What do you mean? Not on Alligator Gore's internet. Absolutely not.
I mean,
Not even once.
Why not?
Because I didn't think that this would fail.
But it's not even in the back of your mind, like, what do I do if this fails?
Not even once.
Have you failed before?
Liar!
okay.
Liar!
Lies, fails, and tails. Like, this is ridiculous.
Like, what is the reason?
What is
Why? Why? What is the reason? Why are you lying like that? There's evidence on the internet of
Yeah, but
him.
when you're most people who are like pathological liars and narcissists, like, literally live in their own.
They have so many lies that they can't keep up. They can't keep up with their lies. They just forget.
They just deny reality, and they live in their own reality where they do nothing wrong. Nothing is their fault. Everything is a byproduct of chance, and they take no physical responsibility.
I can't. It's just, and he just looks so smug. It's very off-putting. I
was like, mainly because I got more interested in crypto, and and this is sort of like the first major thing that I've done in my career. And before that, I had never failed before.
When people try and connect the dots between Basis Cash and what happened with Terra, and you talk about that wasn't me, that was a failed project. Some people could look at that and say, that's kind of setting up to make Terra look better than Basis Cash.
So to give some context on Basis Cash, we acquired a young team that was working on a staking derivatives.
I just want to say that I don't really understand why this part of the interview is even necessary or a topic of discussion, because who cares, and how and why is it relevant to what happens on this project that failed? And why did it fail?
But I also want to say that this is crazy, because he doesn't understand how bad he fucked up this year. Like, you literally triggered regulation. You triggered regulation. How do you do that? How the fuck do you do that? And you're
One
sitting in a
person
room.
by yourself.
That's why. Well, him and 3AC. It was him. Well, no, he started it because 3AC was over leveraging and then had a bunch of money in. But it is his fault. He is the root of all evil this year. And it's just like you triggered a catalyst of financial loss that literally caused the bear market. And you can say whatever you want. Crypto was not in the shitters. It was like down, but it wasn't in the. It was like everyone's saying it's obviously like it goes through seasons, right? We know that. We expect a bear market. We also have all-time highs. We're not tripping. But this is like a self-proclaimed liquidity bear market triggered by this man. So there's no way you can sit in this room and calmly not answer questions and bring up all these unrelated things and think that that's okay or that even qualifies as like an interview. It's literally like Stockholm syndrome. Like, I don't know what's going on in his little brain of his, but like, this is not okay. And you are